There is a subtle yet powerful illusion that ruins millions of men without them ever noticing. The belief that everything is fine, that their routine, comfort, and predictability mean they are safe. But ask yourself, safe from what? From danger or from growth? In today's world, strength is often mistaken for appearance. Muscles, noise, status updates. But real strength, the kind that endures when the spotlight fades, is quiet, disciplined, and forged in solitude. As Viktor Frankl once wrote, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Most men avoid that challenge, and it costs them everything. Have you ever sat in silence and asked yourself, what am I really building with my life? Not what you earn, not what others think, but who you are when there is no audience. If that question made you uneasy, good. That discomfort is the first crack in the illusion. Because here is the truth: most men fear life will test you, whether you are ready or not. Loss will come, rejection will come, chaos will arrive. You can either meet it with a mind shaped by discipline and clarity, or be crushed under your own emotional weight. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." And that is the root of most modern suffering. We do not train for what matters. We train for appearance, for approval, for speed, but not for stillness, not for patience, not for the brutal simplicity of endurance. This is not about self-help platitudes. This is about returning to what is real. The practice of showing up every day with intention, courage, and self-respect, even when it is hard, even when no one claps. The purpose of this journey is not to impress. It is to become unshakable, to build an inner fortress, brick by brick, with every decision you make. If that sounds demanding, it is. But it is also freeing, because once you stop running from difficulty, you begin to rise above it. The examined life is not a luxury. It is a necessity. 1. True strength does not scream strength. In its truest form, is not loud. It does not demand attention. It does not clamor for validation. True strength is still, quiet, almost invisible, yet when it is present, you feel it in your bones. It is not the man who talks the most, flexes the hardest, or dominates the room who holds real power. It is the man who could but chooses not to. In a world that rewards noise and spectacle, this idea can be unsettling. But take a moment and consider this. Why do the strongest men in history, those we deeply respect, speak with restraint? Because they do not need to convince. Their actions speak louder than their egos ever could. As Lao Tzu said, "He who does not trust enough will not be trusted." The best leaders are those the people barely know exist. Think about that. In a culture obsessed with being seen, heard, and followed, could it be that the loudest are often the most afraid? True strength comes from mastery of self, not control over others. It is the ability to stay calm when insulted, composed under pressure, and kind without needing applause. It is choosing restraint when rage is easier. It is walking away when pride screams for retaliation. Strength is not reaction, it is response, and response requires inner stillness. The man who has nothing to prove is dangerous, not because he threatens, but because he is grounded. He does not chase attention, because he knows exactly who he is. And that kind of presence unsettles people. It reminds them of everything they are not ready to face. There is a reason why Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome and a man with absolute power, reminded himself daily, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. That is strength, to be unmoved, to remain principled in the face of provocation. This is not about being passive. It is about choosing your battles with wisdom. The immature man fights everything. The wise man fights only what matters. Consider this. If someone's opinion of you can shatter your peace, how strong are you really? If you need likes, attention, or approval to feel valuable, what happens when they disappear? True strength is self-sufficient. It does not need the world to confirm it. And ironically, that is when the world takes notice. The man who is unshaken by praise or criticism becomes a magnet, not by force, but by depth. So the next time you feel the urge to prove yourself, pause. Ask yourself, am I reacting to a wound or responding from my core? Because real power does not scream. It stands in silence and watches the world adjust. 2. Build resilience through adversity. There is a brutal truth that most people avoid. Growth never happens in comfort. Comfort soothes, but it never strengthens. If you are not tested, you are not transforming. And if you are not transforming, you are stagnating, slowly decaying behind the illusion of a peaceful life. Adversity, though painful, is the forge of character. It strips away the surface and reveals what lies beneath. You do not know who you are until you are pushed to your limits. And when that moment comes, you will either shatter or sharpen. As the ancient philosopher Epictetus wrote, difficulties show a person's character. So when trouble comes, think of yourself as a wrestler whom God has paired with a tough opponent. You were not meant to be spared from adversity. You were meant to rise through it. Look around. Every man you respect, every story of greatness, begins with hardship. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison and emerged not bitter, but wiser. Viktor Frankl endured the horrors of a concentration camp and gave the world a philosophy of meaning. They did not become great despite suffering. They became great through it. The problem is not adversity. It is the belief that adversity should not happen, that life owes you ease. It does not. Life owes you nothing but the raw material to become someone worth being. The question is, are you using it? Every setback is a test. When you lose, do you learn or do you blame? When you fail, do you recalibrate or do you retreat? The man who endures pain without bitterness builds inner armor layer by layer, scar by scar. That armor does not make him hard. It makes him whole. And yet, there is a paradox. Those who embrace adversity become calmer. Why? Because they no longer fear it. They have already suffered, adapted, survived. Fear loses its grip on the man who stops running. Resilience is not the absence of pain. It is the refusal to be defined by it. This requires practice. Not dramatic, heroic acts, but small, daily disciplines. Getting up early when you feel like quitting. Speaking with honesty when lying would be easier. Choosing patience when your blood boils. These moments seem minor, but they are everything. They are where the battle is fought and won. If you wait for life to be easy before you act with strength, you will wait forever. So when the next hardship arrives, and it will do not ask, why me? Ask, what is this here to build in me? Because the man who turns adversity into training becomes unstoppable. That is how resilience is forged, not in fantasy, but in fire. 3. Embrace death to truly live. Most people live as if they will never die. They wake up each morning, assuming there will be 1,000 more. They delay the hard conversations, bury their dreams, and avoid their truth, because they think there is time. But here is the harsh reality. You do not know how many mornings you have left. That thought should unsettle you. It should rattle the comfortable delusion that life is guaranteed. But if you can hold that discomfort without flinching, something powerful happens. You begin to live on purpose. The Stoics understood this deeply. Memento mori. Remember you must die. It was not a morbid obsession. It was clarity, a sharpening of priorities. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Imagine carrying that awareness into your choices today. Would you waste time scrolling, complaining, waiting? Death, for the wise man, is not an enemy, it is a mentor. It teaches urgency. It eliminates illusions. It strips away the irrelevant and leaves only what truly matters. Consider this. If death is inevitable, what excuse remains for not becoming who you were meant to be? That realization is not meant to crush you. It is meant to awaken you. Most people fear death because they have not truly lived. They fear the end because they never began. But when you live with intention, when your actions align with your values, death loses its grip. As the philosopher Montaigne said, to practice death is to practice freedom. A man who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a slave. Because what can the world take from a man who has already made peace with his mortality? You cannot manipulate him with fear. You cannot seduce him with vanity. He does not waste time pretending. He does not delay honesty. He does not hide from pain. He lives now because now is all he has. This mindset transforms everything. Setbacks feel smaller. Ego feels irrelevant. And love becomes deeper because you finally understand it will not last forever. You become more courageous, not less, not reckless, but real. You say what needs to be said. You take the risk. You cut the noise. You show up. So reflect on this. If you knew today was your last, how would you live it? That is not a poetic question. It is a test. The man who can answer it with calm clarity is the man who is free. Remembering death is not about fearing the end. It is about honoring the miracle of the moment. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. 4. Discipline your desires. Freedom through needing less desire is not the enemy, but uncontrolled desire is a slow, silent form of slavery. Look closely at modern life. Everywhere you turn, you are told to want more wealth, more attention, more pleasure, more validation. You are bombarded with images of what you should have to feel fulfilled. But here is the truth no one wants to face. The more you need, the less free you are. The Stoics were not against desire. They were against being ruled by it. As Epictetus put it, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Most desires are exactly that, beyond your control, fueled by comparison, driven by ego, and never truly satisfied. Let that sink in. Desire promises happiness, but it delivers restlessness. Every time you chase the next thing, you reinforce the belief that something outside of you holds the key to peace. And with every craving fulfilled, a new one rises. It is a treadmill. It never ends. Now ask yourself, what do you actually need? This question is both unsettling and liberating. Most people do not know the answer. They are so consumed by wanting more that they have lost touch with what truly sustains them. The disciplined man pauses. He observes. He separates real needs from emotional impulses. He can enjoy pleasure without being possessed by it. He can walk away from indulgence, not because he is weak, but because he is strong enough to choose. There is deep power in that. When you are no longer pulled in 10 directions by endless wants, your mind becomes still. When you stop needing applause, your voice becomes honest. When you stop chasing status, your presence becomes grounded. As Socrates said, "He is richest who is content with the least." That is not romanticism. It is logic. The man who requires little to be at peace is the hardest to control. This is not about living in poverty or rejecting success. It is about choosing what holds value and letting go of the rest. It is about building a life that is light, focused, and unshakable. So here is the challenge. The next time you feel a desire rising, pause. Do not act on it immediately. Ask yourself, is this serving my highest self or feeding a temporary craving? If you can master that pause, you can master your life. The man who disciplines his desires does not live with less, he lives with just enough. And that is where real freedom begins. 5. mastering emotion. Feel without surrendering emotion is not weakness. It is part of being human. But being ruled by emotion, that is a path to chaos. Modern culture sends men two conflicting messages. Either suppress your feelings entirely, or be endlessly led by them. Both are traps. One turns you into a closed-off shell. The other makes you a slave to every mood, trigger, and whim. Neither builds a resilient man. True strength lies in the middle in mastery, the ability to feel deeply without being driven blindly. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who ruled a vast empire while battling personal grief and public pressure, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The same applies to emotion. You may not control what rises within you, but you control what happens next. Anger flares, fear creeps in, sadness washes over you. These states are not failures, they are signals. What you do with them determines your character. The weak man reacts, the strong man reflects. To master your emotions, start by creating space. The moment you feel triggered, pause, breathe. Do not immediately speak. Do not lash out. Ask yourself, what am I actually feeling? What belief is feeding this? Is my response aligned with my values or my ego? This practice is not easy. It is not dramatic, but it is powerful. That small space between stimulus and response is where freedom lives. Emotional mastery does not mean becoming cold. It means becoming clear. You do not let rage burn your integrity. You do not let fear stop your mission. You do not let sadness erode your discipline. You feel it, but you do not become it. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Emotion is part of that adversity. How you handle it reveals everything. This discipline also breeds empathy. When you understand your own emotional storms, you recognize them in others. You respond with presence, not pity, not judgment. That makes you dangerous in the best way. Calm in conflict, sharp under pressure, compassionate without losing control. And make no mistake, emotion will test you. Life will throw triggers your way. Someone will insult you. Someone will disappoint you. You will feel waves rising inside. But the man who has trained himself does not drown. He rides those waves with grace. The goal is not to suppress emotion, it is to command it, to stand in the center of the storm and choose your move with clarity and purpose. Because the man who rules himself cannot be ruled by anyone else. 6. Turn chaos into strength. Chaos is not an interruption. It is the invitation. We spend our lives trying to avoid its scheduling, planning, building routines that promise stability. But deep down, every man knows the truth. Life is unpredictable. Your plans will break. Your comfort will vanish. The question is not if chaos will come, it is how you will face it. The Stoics were clear. Do not wish for a calm sea train to steer in the storm. As Seneca wrote, difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. You do not build strength in stillness. You build it in movement, in resistance, in struggle. And chaos provides the ultimate resistance. Chaos reveals what you truly believe. When control slips from your hands, do you panic or adapt? When your path shatters, do you freeze or recalibrate? When life pulls you down, do you drown in complaint or rise with clarity? Most people break because they expect life to be easy. They believe that discomfort is a mistake, that hardship is unfair. But chaos is not your enemy. It is your mirror. It shows you what is real and what is illusion. It burns away the inessential. Imagine a man who is trained for this. He does not fear disruption. He uses it. When the business fails, he builds again. When the relationship ends, he grows deeper. When the future turns dark, he sharpens his present. That is power not in controlling chaos, but in becoming unshaken by it. As Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the concentration camps of Auschwitz, wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Chaos is that challenge. It demands evolution. You will not find this strength in books alone. It must be lived. It is built in the days when everything falls apart, and you choose discipline anyway. When no one believes in you, and you show up regardless. When the world screams for you to collapse, and you do not. This is not romantic. It is raw, and it requires training. Not in comfort, but in resilience. Not in control, but in surrender to the truth that life will test you without warning. And the man who is ready, he becomes unstoppable. So do not resent the storm. Enter it. Learn from it. Let it strip away your weakness. Let it force you into growth. Because when chaos no longer breaks you, it becomes your greatest ally. You do not become strong in spite of chaos. You become strong because of it. 7. Choose virtue not for reward, but for what is right. There is a dangerous illusion that has infected modern thinking. The idea that virtue should be rewarded. That if you are honest, life will be fair. That if you do good, others will recognize it. That if you act with integrity, success will follow. But the world does not work that way. And when reality breaks this illusion, most men collapse. They become bitter, cynical, or transactional. They stop choosing what is right and start chasing what is convenient. That is when the slow decay begins not of their fortunes, but of their character. The Stoics warned us, do not do good to be seen as good. Do good because it is who you are. Marcus Aurelius wrote, just that you do the right thing. The rest does not matter. That is the standard. Clear, uncompromising. You act with justice, with courage, with discipline, not because the world claps, but because it aligns with your deepest self. Virtue is not a bargaining chip. It is not a performance. It is a choice, a quiet, difficult, often thankless choice. And that is precisely what makes it powerful. Because anyone can act with integrity when it benefits them. But to remain honest when it costs you, to stand by your values when everyone else folds, that is rare. That is strength. There will be moments in your life when compromise looks tempting. A shortcut that no one will notice. A lie that would protect your image. A silence that would keep you safe. Those moments are not small. They are defining. Who you are when no one is watching is who you are. And here is the unsettling truth. You might never be praised for choosing virtue. In fact, you might be criticized, misunderstood, even punished. But if your sense of peace depends on recognition, you are not free. You are a prisoner of public opinion. As Epictetus said, do not explain your philosophy. Embody it. Virtue is lived, not justified. When you act with clarity and principle, you carry a force within you that no praise or insult can touch. And that force becomes your anchor. Virtue also simplifies life. It cuts through the noise. When you know your values, decisions become easier. You do not chase approval. You do not adjust your morals to fit the moment. You move with quiet conviction, even when the crowd moves the other way. This is not a call to perfection. You will fail. You will fall short. But the point is not to be flawless. It is to be aligned. To look in the mirror and say, I was true to what matters. So do not choose virtue for applause. Choose it because it makes you whole. Because in a world obsessed with image, the man who acts from integrity becomes uncheckable. Not popular, not praised, but free. 8. Accept reality. Stop wasting your energy fighting. What is there is a kind of suffering that goes unnoticed, quiet, constant, corrosive. It is not caused by events themselves, but by the mind's refusal to accept them. A man loses his job, and instead of adapting, he spirals into it should not have happened. A relationship ends, and instead of grieving, he obsesses over what if I had done more. This is not strength. This is resistance. And it drains you. Acceptance is not weakness. It is not giving up. It is not passively letting life do what it wants. Acceptance is clarity. It is the decision to stop fighting the unchangeable and start acting where it counts. Epictetus said it simply: happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. That line should rattle you. It is the dividing line between wisdom and delusion. If you do not learn to see this difference, life will exhaust you. Most men waste their fire on things they cannot touch: the past, other people's opinions, the weather, fate. They spend days replaying arguments in their heads. They try to control outcomes that were never theirs to own, and they wonder why they feel stuck. But when you accept reality as it is brutal, unfair, unpredictable, you gain something rare: inner leverage. You stop reacting. You start responding. You reclaim the power to choose your mindset, your effort, your next move. This is not an easy path. The ego will fight you. It will scream, "You deserve better," or "This is not fair." And maybe it is not. But reality does not care what you think it should be. It only offers what is. And your energy is too valuable to be wasted on denial. Think of Marcus Aurelius, an emperor surrounded by war, betrayal, plague, and yet he wrote, "Love only what fate has dealt you, for what could suit you better?" That is not poetic softness. That is hard-earned discipline. To meet life without illusion. To say, "This happened. Now what will I do with it?" Acceptance is the ground where progress begins. It does not mean you like the pain. It means you stop arguing with it. It means you use it. If you are rejected, learn. If you are betrayed, adjust. If you are broken, rebuild. Because the man who accepts reality is dangerous. He wastes no time. He holds no false hope. He works with what he has ruthlessly, clearly, fully. So when the next blow comes, and it will, do not flinch, do not curse, do not stall. Say, "This is real. I see it. I accept it. And I will move forward anyway." That is power. That is peace. And it cannot be taken from you. 9. Master your thinking. Control the lens. Command your life. Your thoughts are not harmless. They are architects. Silent builders. Every belief you hold becomes the blueprint of your life. Whether you are conscious of it or not, your thinking shapes how you feel, how you act, and ultimately, who you become. Most men live in mental autopilot narratives inherited from childhood, culture, or past failures. They do not question them. They just react. I always mess up. No one takes me seriously. Life is against me. These are not facts. These are frames, and frames can be shattered. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your judgment of them. And it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now." That idea should challenge you deeply. It means that suffering is often a product of perception, not reality. Ask yourself this. How many times have you talked yourself into anxiety, into failure, into self-sabotage before anything even happened? That is not the world doing that to you. That is your mind, left untrained. To master your thinking, you must become a ruthless observer of it. Thoughts will rise, you cannot stop them. But you can intercept them. You can challenge them. You can redirect them. This is not toxic positivity. It is not pretending that everything is fine. It is the discipline of asking, is this thought useful? Is it grounded in truth? Does it push me forward or pull me down? That awareness is where mental sovereignty begins. Consider Viktor Frankl, who endured the horrors of a concentration camp and still wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That is not just wisdom. That is proof. If a man can reframe his mind in a death camp, what excuse do you have in traffic, at work, or during conflict? Reframing is not denial, it is choosing to see with clarity. Setbacks become tests. Criticism becomes feedback. Delay becomes preparation. You do not invent meaning. You extract it. Over time, this reshapes you. You no longer spiral when plans collapse. You ask, "What now?" You no longer obsess over what you lack. You use what you have. You move from reaction to reflection, from survival to strategy. This is how leaders think. Not perfectly, but deliberately. The man who masters his thinking does not need everything to go his way. He creates advantage from adversity. He does not need validation. He sees clearly. He does not wait for motivation. He chooses alignment. So here is the test. Watch your thoughts. Audit them. Bend them toward strength. Because if you do not command your lens, the world will fill it with fear, noise, and weakness. Control the frame. Own the story. And you will change the course. 10. Silence, the foundation of clarity and strength. In a world addicted to noise, silence is rebellion. In a culture that values speed, sound, and constant stimulation, to be still, truly still, is to reclaim your power. Most people fear silence, not because it is empty, but because it is full of truth they have avoided, thoughts they have suppressed, questions they are not ready to face. But the man who can sit in silence without flinching is a man who is no longer running from himself. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul, especially when you have within you a quiet place." That is not just philosophy, it is strategy. Because here is the deeper truth. If you do not create silence, the world will drown you. The opinions of others, the endless scroll, the news, the noise. It seeps in, slowly shaping your values, your emotions, your decisions, until you forget what is yours and what is not. You react instead of reflect. You copy instead of choose. You survive instead of lead. Silence is where you return to yourself. It is in silence that clarity emerges. When the mind is no longer bombarded by distraction, it starts to reveal what actually matters, what you fear, what you want, what you believe. These truths do not scream, they whisper, and only a still mind can hear them. But silence is not just passive calm. It is a discipline, a practice. It is choosing not to speak when ego demands it. It is resisting the urge to respond instantly. It is the courage to listen, to pause, to wait. As Blaise Pascal once said, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. That is not exaggeration, it is warning. If you cannot find peace in stillness, you will search for it in chaos. You will fill your life with noise to avoid the quiet truth that you feel lost. Yet the man who trains in silence becomes dangerous. He becomes composed when others are reactive. He becomes grounded while others flail. He speaks with weight because his words are not impulsive. They are earned. You do not need to retreat to a monastery. You only need to reclaim space. A walk without your phone, a morning without distraction, 5 deep breaths before responding. These moments, small but sacred, are where strength is cultivated. Silence sharpens awareness. It tempers pride. It builds presence. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds you that you are not just a reaction to the world. You are a creator within it. When you stop talking, you start seeing. When you stop filling space, you start inhabiting it. In silence, the man finds his true voice, not the one shaped by noise, but the one forged in stillness. That voice is calm, it is clear, and when it finally speaks, the world listens. 11. Be grateful for difficulty. It is where you are forged. Gratitude is easy when life flows. When things fall into place, when comfort surrounds you, and when recognition comes easily, it feels natural to say, thank you. But true gratitude, the kind that builds men of depth and power, begins where comfort ends. The Stoics did not view hardship as a punishment. They saw it as a teacher, a tool, a forge. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." That is not metaphor, it is mechanism. Just as resistance builds muscle, challenge builds character. So ask yourself this: when life has crushed you, when the job fell through, when she left, when everything you built burned down, did you shrink? Or did you rise with new awareness? Pain forces clarity. It strips away pretense. It removes the illusion of control and reminds you of what is essential. The man who avoids hardship avoids himself. The man who faces it, however bruised, begins to meet his true nature. And yet, the instinct is always the same: to resist, to complain, to ask, why me? But a better question is, what is this here to make of me? Gratitude for difficulty is not romanticizing pain. It is recognizing opportunity hidden inside adversity. Rejection teaches humility. Loss teaches detachment. Fatigue teaches patience. Betrayal teaches discernment. Nothing develops you faster than being broken and choosing not to stay broken. As Khalil Gibran once said, "Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls." The most massive characters are seared with scars. Look closely at the men you admire, the ones who move with quiet strength, who speak with earned calm. They have walked through fire, and they did not curse the flame, they thanked it. Because without struggle, there is no transformation. Comfort might give you peace, but it will never give you power. Gratitude becomes a weapon, not passive acceptance, but active transmutation. It allows you to take the worst days and forge from them wisdom, resilience, and unshakable resolve. This is not about pretending difficulty is pleasant. It is about seeing it as necessary. When you adopt this mindset, you stop fearing pain. You stop avoiding challenge. You meet life on its terms, ready to extract value from every blow. Over time, you begin to trust hardship. You know it will teach you, shape you, reveal you. So the next time difficulty knocks, pause, do not flinch. Open the door and say, "I have been expecting you." Because the man who is grateful for difficulty is not only resilient, he is invincible. 12. Act as if you are already a wise man. Wisdom is not a distant summit. It is not something granted after years of reading, or reserved for old age and gray hair. Wisdom is not waiting for you at the end of some abstract journey. It begins the moment you stop postponing and start embodying. But most men delay. They tell themselves, "Once I am wiser, I will live better. Once I have more experience, I will choose differently." It is a convenient lie, a safe excuse, and it keeps you stuck in hesitation. Marcus Aurelius cut straight through that delusion. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. That sentence should make your spine stiffen, because it exposes a brutal truth. You already know what to do. The work is in doing it. The path of self-mastery does not begin with clarity. It begins with commitment. You do not wait until you feel wise. You choose to act as wisdom would act. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now, ask yourself, how would a wise man handle this moment? This conflict? This craving? And then do that, not perfectly, not flawlessly, but deliberately. This practice is what separates thinkers from doers. It is the difference between collecting knowledge and living by principle. There are many who read the Stoics, quote philosophers, share impressive insights. But when adversity strikes, they break, because wisdom was never integrated. It stayed on the shelf, never entering the bloodstream of behavior. To live as if you are wise is to train in the real arena. It means speaking calmly when provoked, choosing patience when your ego wants revenge, holding boundaries when others push, walking away when your pride screams to stay. This is not about performance. It is about alignment. You already know the difference between right and wrong, between impulse and intention. The gap is not knowledge. The gap is action. Seneca reminds us, while we wait for life, life passes. If you keep waiting to become the man you admire, you will run out of time before you even begin. So act now, not as a fraud, pretending perfection, but as a man in motion, willing to practice. The more you live as wisdom would, the more natural it becomes. You shift from pretending to becoming, from trying to embodying. And when you fail, and you will start again. That too is part of wisdom. Humility, persistence, ownership. You do not need permission to act with clarity. You do not need a title to carry presence. You do not need to be perfect to live with principle. Start behaving like the man you respect, and soon you will be, not by waiting, but by walking. That is how wisdom is earned, in practice, in presence, in now. Conclusion: strength is not given, it is chosen. Life will not wait for you to be ready. It does not ask if you feel prepared. It does not check your schedule. It arrives raw, chaotic, uncertain, and demands that you respond. The question is never, will life test you? The question is always, who will you be when it does? Philosophy is not meant to be admired, it is meant to be lived. The Stoics understood this. They did not study resilience to sound wise. They practiced it because life gave them no other option. As Epictetus said, do not explain your philosophy. Embody it. That single sentence separates the man who talks from the man who transforms. Every principle you have just explored, discipline, silence, endurance, clarity, virtue, is useless without action. They are not traits you are born with. They are forged in discomfort, tested in failure, and refined through repetition. You do not have to be fearless, but you must be willing. You do not have to be perfect, but you must be intentional. And you do not have to have it all figured out, but you must begin. This is not a motivational idea. It is a survival strategy. Because the man who waits for external validation, ideal conditions, or emotional comfort before acting, he will wait forever. Meanwhile, life moves, challenges rise, time passes, and the cost of inaction compounds. As Viktor Frankl once wrote, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. That is where all true growth begins, not outside of you, but within.